changing mask requirements. The Biden administration considers a new approach to outdoor activities. Packing the Supreme Court. Democrats renew their push to add more liberal justices. Back in business. Roman museums cautiously open their doors to tourists. And preparing for Orthodox Easter. See the Palm Sunday celebrations. On EWTN News Nightly for Monday, April 26, 2021. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. I'm Tracy Sable. The requirement to wear face masks outdoors may be changing here in the United States. The Biden administration is set to announce new guidelines, something Americans have been hoping for over a year. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports. Owen?
Tracy, good evening to you. Everywhere you go right now, of course, you see people wearing these, their masks inside and out. But as you mentioned, change could be coming very soon. The president set to announce new mask guidance tomorrow.
White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki addresses reporters.
We will certainly leave it to the CDC to announce their guidance, which I think was the second part of your question, about what will be required outside and when masks will be required for individuals who have been vaccinated.
One study reported in the Journal of Infectious Diseases found less than 10% of COVID-19 infections occurred outside. As for the post-pandemic economic outlook,
the president is excited to this week lay out his plan to invest in American families.
In India, crematoriums overwhelmed. Record numbers of COVID infections. Physicians literally begging for outside help. The White House says today it will provide India with oxygen-related supplies, vaccine materials, and therapeutics. Meanwhile, in Turkey today, a group of people protesting President Joe Biden's use of the word genocide. The White House over the weekend said this: the American people honor all those Armenians who perished in the genocide that began 106 years ago. In 1915, the Ottoman Empire began deporting and killing Armenians. An estimated 1.5 million died. Armenia's officials laid wreaths at the country's memorial, but Turkey condemned the genocide proclamation, claiming there are no legal grounds for it, and saying both Armenians and Turks were killed as World War I ravaged the Ottoman Empire.
Also tonight, the Biden administration says 34 million school kids who are learning virtually this past school year will get money for meals this entire summer. Parents will get $375 per child. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
This week, the US Senate Judiciary Committee will take its first look at President Biden's initial batch of judicial nominees if a spot should open up on the Supreme Court. As Democratic progressives continue their fight to expand the high court, one Republican introduces a constitutional amendment to keep it at just 9 justices. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales reports. Eric?
Well, Tracy, we know that House Speaker Nancy Pelosi does not plan to bring the Democrats' bill that would expand the Supreme Court to 13 to the House floor anytime soon. However, that could change after the White House Commission reveals on what it finds on Supreme Court reforms. However, one Republican is not taking any chances with that.
The last thing we need to see here in Washington is one party or the other deciding to stack up the Supreme Court.
Congressman Rodney Davis of Illinois is co-sponsoring a constitutional amendment, H.J. Resolution 11, which states, quote, the Supreme Court of the United States shall be composed of 9 justices. Since 1869, the U.S. Supreme Court has had 9 justices, and he believes it should stay that way.
I think it's really a reflection of the failures of Congress that the next step some in Congress want to take and that the administration may want to take is to change the other branch of government. How about we look inward? How about we reflect on ourselves? And how about we start to figure out a way to get some bipartisan agreements passed?
For the constitutional amendment to be adopted, both chambers of Congress must pass the joint resolution, followed by 3/4 of state legislatures ratifying the resolution within 7 years. The moves come after several prominent Democrats have called for packing the court to add 4 additional justices for a total of 13. President Joe Biden also created an executive order establishing a commission to look into Supreme Court reforms, including the length of service and turnover of justices on the court, and membership and size of the court. Republicans criticize the push by Democrats as being radical and a tool of a partisan agenda.
Why do they want more justices? To make the court liberal so that when they fail at the ballot box, they can get the Supreme Court to enact their agenda.
There has been calls to have Justice Stephen Breyer retire at the end of this term. Democrats say that at 82 years old, this would give President Biden a chance to be able to nominate a younger liberal justice to the high court. At the Capitol, Eric Rosales, EWTN News Nightly.
Joining us now is John Bursch, Vice President of Appellate Advocacy and Senior Counsel for the Alliance Defending Freedom. John, welcome. Thanks so much for joining us. Talk to us about how adding 4 justices to the Supreme Court would impact the country in what ways?
Well, it's a dangerous power grab and a blatant attempt to politicize the court. The left already gets plenty of victories at the U.S. Supreme Court, but now they want to stack the deck so that they can win all the cases. And after years of pro-life organizations pushing for politicians to make sure that those who would repeal Roe versus Wade for the unconstitutional monstrosity that it is make it up to the court. Now they're on the verge of maybe making some progress on that. The liberals want to be able to just peel all that back and stack the deck in their favor again. So this would have terrible consequences, not only for the right to life and the ability to protect, pass legislation that protects life, but also for religious liberty and free speech and a variety of other areas.
John, why do you think this push is happening right now? And ultimately, how do you think this will all play out?
Well, it's interesting that it's happening now because, as you just heard, Speaker Pelosi has already said she won't bring it to the floor. Joe Biden has said unfavorable things about the plan. Bernie Sanders doesn't support it. Even Justice Breyer, who may be stepping down soon, has said that packing the court is a bad idea. So you start to wonder, why is it introduced now? And I think one of the reasons might be to try to influence the conservatives on the court to not make rulings that follow the Constitution and the rule of law. Because if they're worried that the court might be packed, if the left doesn't like the results that they come out with, that might moderate their decisions and they may stray from what the law actually requires. And so I think it's nothing less than an attempt to influence what the justices do, and that's wrong. And I hope that the court full-throatedly rejects that with its upcoming rulings.
Changing gears just a little bit here, what else are you keeping your eye on as far as cases coming before the Supreme Court?
Well, the big one to keep an eye on before the end of June, when the term ends, is the opinion in the Fulton case, Fulton, that involves the Catholic Charities Adoption Agency in the city of Philadelphia. The city revoked their ability to place children in foster care unless they renounce the church's teaching on marriage as being between one man and one woman. There are a variety of ways that the court could decide that case. It could be a very broad ruling for religious liberty, or it could be something narrow based solely on the demonstrated religious animus of Philadelphia officials. But either way, that's going to be an important precedent for adoption agencies and for the church more generally. Depending on how narrow that decision is, Barronelle Stutzman, the florist in Washington state, who will serve everybody and express all messages but cannot participate in same-sex ceremonies by creating floral art. Her case is still waiting, and that's one that they may take up. And then another to keep an eye on are Trump-era regulations that protect the conscience rights of medical professionals, especially doctors. And those have been challenged. The Biden administration has promised to repeal them. The case is pending before the U.S. Supreme Court right now, and there's a question whether it will go forward. We filed a motion to intervene on behalf of a number of pro-life medical organizations, including the Catholic Medical Association, and we're hopeful that the court will end up taking that case and will vindicate the conscience protections of all those medical professionals.
John, we have about a minute left, but wondering if we can get any final thoughts from you. And also, are there any cases involving abortion that you also have your eye on right now?
Sure. On the abortion area in particular, there are a number of cases making their way through the pipeline, but one that's been sitting at the court for quite some time. The name of the case is Dobbs, D-O-B-B-S, and it comes from Mississippi, which enacted a law that prohibits any abortions after 15 weeks. And the cert petition highlights a conflict in the Supreme Court precedent. On the one hand, some Supreme Court cases say that states don't have the right to restrict abortion before viability. In other cases, they say that states have a strong interest in protecting that nascent life as well as the health of the mothers, and that they have that interest from the moment of conception. And what's more, the court has upheld things like prohibitions on partial birth abortions, recognizing that those can coarsen society and cause people to lose a respect and value for life. So those two things can't both be true, that you can't regulate before viability, but yet you can prohibit partial birth abortion, and that states have interest beginning at the moment of conception. The court has now reconferenced this. That's where they consider whether to grant the case at least a dozen times, and we should know in the next couple of weeks before the term ends whether they'll move forward on that. But if they do, this would be the most important pro-life case at the U.S. Supreme Court since the Casey decision many, many years ago.
John, thanks so much for coming on. We always appreciate your analysis. John Bursch, Vice President of Appellate Advocacy and Senior Counsel for the Alliance Defending Freedom. Thank you so much.
Thank you. God bless.
A federal appeals court has reinstated Tennessee's 48-hour waiting period for women who seek abortions. Two lower courts had previously overruled the waiting period. Tennessee's Attorney General supports the law's constitutionality. After a year of coronavirus lockdowns and restrictions, Italy is cautiously opening up. Museums are welcoming visitors while maintaining health measures. Secondary school students are returning to class, and restaurants are permitted to serve patrons outdoors, while movie theaters are open with social distancing. Hong Kong and Singapore plan to begin an air travel bubble in late May. The conditions are strict. Travelers will be required to spend 14 days in each place before traveling, with additional quarantine periods involved. Prior vaccinations will be required for those outbound from Hong Kong, but not for those heading out of Singapore. Police in Sri Lanka have arrested a Muslim lawmaker and his brother in connection with the 2019 Easter Sunday bombings. These are the first arrests since two groups pledged to ISIS were blamed. Last week's anniversary remembered the 269 victims. Papal Nuncio Archbishop Franco Coppola has visited a remote mountain hamlet in southern Mexico that has been ravaged by the violence of rival drug cartels. Archbishop Coppola offered a mass for the town's isolated residents. Together, they symbolically carried an image of Christ through the streets to bless where many have been cruelly left for dead in recent months. Orthodox Christians have celebrated Palm Sunday. Egyptian Coptic Christians worshipped at the Church of St. Barbara in Cairo. In Jerusalem, the Greek Orthodox Patriarch attended a vigil in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Christians in Greece celebrated at Athens Orthodox Cathedral. Coming up, pregnancy help centers. The president of Heartbeat International describes their pro-life push. And lesson of love. Pope Francis shares Christ's saving power. The largest affiliation network of pregnancy help centers in the world is holding its annual conference this week in Columbus, Ohio. Heartbeat International is offering both in-person and virtual attendance. It is part of the organization's 50th anniversary. The conference features several keynote speakers and nearly 7 dozen workshops to help employees and volunteers at life-affirming pregnancy centers. Joining us now is Jor El Godsey, the president of Heartbeat International. Jor El, welcome back and happy 50th anniversary to your organization. That is so wonderful. First off, let's talk a bit about Heartbeat International, why the organization was formed, and how it has changed and grown over the past 5 decades?
Well, it's a big, tall question, Tracy. The Heartbeat International really was called into existence by the fledgling pregnancy help movement that really predates Roe. It started in the late 60s when the rise of abortion begins to happen in the U.S. There were people who, of course, were acting politically and legislatively, but there are also people who realized that, hey, it might take a little while to get this fixed, so we need to help women who are facing challenging decisions and certainly enticed by abortion and what the promise was at the time. And so an alternatives to abortion movement began, and that really is what we call the pregnancy help movement today. And Heartbeat was spawned out of that. Really, the movement called Heartbeat into existence to have a place to connect so that we could be a part of the movement, and we have been for 50 years now.
That's wonderful. I want to go to the conference now. I understand last year's conference was a little different because of the pandemic, with everything being held online. How is this year's conference different, and what stayed the same?
Well, we weren't able to meet last year in person. In fact, all of the pandemic stuff began to kind of descend on our country, even as we were preparing to go to Seattle, but we couldn't go. So we pivoted completely to virtual, but we longed for that in-person experience. In fact, it's one of the things that we celebrate in Pregnancy Help is connection and community and relationship. And so we've been excited that even in the midst of a 50th anniversary, we couldn't be as big as we wanted together, but we could still be together. And so we are having a great turnout in person here in Columbus and also online in our virtual conference. So we're actually running 2 conferences at the same time. So that's different for us, but it's kind of having the best of both worlds.
Absolutely. Can you talk about some of the highlights of the conference this year? What can people look forward to, and what are you looking forward to personally?
Well, okay, so what I'm looking forward to is really just reconnecting and seeing some beautiful smiles and faces and just the community that it is to interact with people. But we have some great speakers on board. We have some wonderful musical talents going to be with us. Nicole C. Mullen is going to be joining us for our kind of kickoff conference. We have Dr. Rob McKenna, who's a world-renowned industrial psychologist, is going to be with us. Our friends from We Are Messengers, Darren Mulligan, is joining us. And we have a lot of great speakers. Sister Dee Dee is going to be with us as well on Friday. We can't wait to hear from her because we want to, of course, focus on abortion pill reversal as a key growth area for us. And we've been excited to be a part of that. So, but in the midst of this is going to be workshops, everything from marketing and fundraising, as well as, of course, client care, housing efforts, all kinds of pregnancy help training and equipping and encouraging is going to be going on in these next few days.
Wonderful. And Jor El, before I let you go quickly, overall, how do you think the pro-life movement is doing? And also looking ahead to the future, what do you think pro-lifers need to focus on?
Well, clearly, our challenges are rising from Washington and from the Capitol. But, you know, on Main Street, there are women making decisions about their babies every single day. There are women faced with the challenge to do that, and the men who are with her need to be called into accountability. And so we look forward to making sure that no woman feels forced into an abortion, but they have a loving outreach that they can turn to, and that's what Pregnancy Help is all about. And that's really where our strong point is going to be, even as we return to the political arena and try to make sure that we don't let the country go too far, but that we still maintain that heart and compassion for those who are facing difficult decisions.
Jor El, thank you so much, and good luck with the conference, and God bless you for what you do. Jor El Godsey, the president of Heartbeat International. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Up next, migrant disaster. The prayers for people who died at sea. And Good Shepherd Sunday. Pope Francis welcomes more men to the priesthood. Pope Francis ordained 9 men yesterday to the priesthood. He also weighed in on the work that's ahead of them.
Pastori del Santo Popolo Fedele di Dio.
The Holy Father says being a priest is not a career path, it is a service to the faithful. And he urged the 9 men to keep their eyes on Christ at all times. He also told them to be humble and compassionate. The new priests will serve the Diocese of Rome. Well, after the ordinations on Good Shepherd Sunday, Pope Francis prayed the Regina Caeli and addressed pilgrims in St. Peter's Square.
Gesù difende, conosce e ama a noi, a tutti.
The Holy Father said Jesus defends, knows, and loves each and every one of us. The Pope said through the sacraments we can experience Christ's presence and strength. More than 100 migrants died in a shipwreck last week in the Mediterranean Sea. According to an independent rescue group, the rubber boat was initially carrying 130 people from Libya to Europe. No survivors were found. Reports say more than 350 people have drowned at sea this year. Joining us with more on this subject is Monica Attias, coordinator of the Humanitarian Corridors from Greece for the Community of Sant'Egidio. Monica, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. I know Pope Francis prayed for the migrants who died yesterday. Talk to us more about that. What did he say?
Well, he spoke very loudly, actually, in commenting the shipwreck. He said it's time for shame. And he said they are people, they are human lives. And for 2 whole days, they have begged for help in vain. So help has not arrived, unfortunately. And then he prayed for those who can help but prefer to look elsewhere. So that is why today we are joining him in prayer in Rome and in many other European cities, including, fortunately, some of the capitals of the Visegrad countries like Warsaw and Budapest that are not usually very open towards the migrants.
Monica, can you talk to us a little bit more about these journeys on the sea and for those who may not know why they're so dangerous?
Yes, actually they are very, very dangerous. Before they cross the sea and during the crossing. There are people from all over Africa and also from Asia, from Pakistan, from Afghanistan, who cross the Mediterranean. They arrive in Libya through the traffickers with many sufferings, and very often during the trip they are enslaved to pay for their trip. And especially women suffer a lot because they are prostituted and they are exploited for many months before they can cross the river, as some of them call the Mediterranean. So the voyage in the sea is a nightmare. You are pushed in an overcrowded dinghy or in a small boat, even if there is bad weather, and people die not only of shipwreck, like the recent one with 130 people who die, but they die suffocated or because of the wounds or burns of a dangerous mix of salted water and petrol. A woman from Nigeria, a victim of human trafficking, told me that she tried 5 times before she could cross the sea. And in the last voyage, she saw her best friend dying in the dinghy because people who fell asleep pushed her into the center of the boat under the other bodies. And this poor woman died suffocated. So it's these trips are really a shame for humanity, I would say.
Well, Monica, thank you so much for your time today and for speaking with us about this and for what you do as well. Monica Attias, coordinator of the Humanitarian Corridors from Greece for the Community of Sant'Egidio. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Pope Francis declared a new saint over the weekend, St. Margaret of Castello. The 14th century Italian lay Dominican was born blind and with a spine disorder. Abandoned by her parents, she was raised by local townspeople and opened a small school to teach the Catholic faith. She died at 33 years old. In Poland, 2 modern-day servants of God will be beatified this fall. Cardinal Stefan Wyszyński was primate of Poland from 1946 until his death in 1981. Like Pope St. John Paul II, Cardinal Wyszynski defended the Catholic Church against Soviet communism. Mother Elizabeth Rosa Chatska was blind after a childhood accident. She would found the Franciscan Sisters Servants of the Cross, ministering to the physically and spiritually blind until her death in 1961. We thank you for watching tonight. For the entire EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Tracy Sable. Good night and God bless.